Hello everybody and welcome to episode 4 of Corrieliminator, where we pit 30 Coronation Street characters randomly chose against each other and give them a ranking. Last month we had a really fun time. Well, it was a funny bunch last month, wasn't it?
We had 3 really good candidates for the top 3 slots, and then the rest of them were just arguing over
how close how close to the bottom can they go
in the top.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get a more interesting bunch this time, but you never see. That's the joy of randomly selecting characters. You never can tell what you're going to get until we get them. So we're going to be picking that very, very soon. But first, let's have a look at how last month's picks did on the listener poll, and unsurprisingly we've got the exact same top 3. So coming out at number 1 in the listener poll for last month, we had Jack Duckworth. Betty Williams was also there, and Elsie Tanner, although looking at this, it was quite close for old Rosie Webster, wasn't it?
Yeah, and also we didn't have Jack as the top, did we?
No, we didn't in the end.
A bit different.
Yeah, Elsie was number 1 for us, and actually Elsie nearly lost out to Rosie Webster here. Dear. So I mean, I guess
that's what you get when you ask people that aren't professionals.
Well, I think we've had people who watch Coronation Street more recently aren't going to have heard of
no, I know, it's really
Elsie
sad.
Tanner, but
she's
won't
got
see
no legacy at all in the street because there's nobody left. I mean, the closest person who's left now is Rita.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think if we'd recorded this 5 years ago, we also probably wouldn't have had Elsie Tanner where we ended up putting her. But
no, that's for sure.
I'm glad that in both ours and the listener vote, she got there. This is an interesting month as well for the number of characters that didn't get any votes at all. So we had all of these characters not a single person voted for in their top 3. So Ivan Jabeski, Fiona, Vikram, Debs Brownlow, unsurprisingly, Eve Sykes, Jamie Baldwin, Diggory Compton, Jerry Morton, Izzy Armstrong, Mandy and Sharif. None of them got a single shout out
really
from our listeners, but it's okay. We other characters who got fairly high number of votes were Bethany and Eva Price as well. So I think they ended up in our top 10 as well. So looks like our minds are in the similar place for those characters. So let's see who we have got this month. So I'm just going to do we've got 210 characters left. We're going to generate 30 of them now.
It's exciting.
Let's see who we've got. So Ina Sharples is our first one. So already we're hitting the big guns here. Surely she's going to be making our top 3 this month, unless she has got some very, very stiff competition. She's one of the most iconic characters ever.
Jack Walker.
I love
next.
Jack Walker.
But I don't think he's got a good chance.
No, it's a shame. He's the first landlord of the Rovers.
If he was in it now, he'd be like one of the most popular characters. There's nobody really like him on the show anymore. He's just a big cuddly bear of a man, like an old school.
Yeah, he was a really, really nice guy, but I don't think he's got quite the legacy to make it into our top 3, maybe even the top 10, depending on who he's up against.
Leonard
Swindley next, played by Arthur Lowe.
Arthur Lowe is still iconic in British entertainment. So that's I don't think that Leonard Swindley is going to go down as one of his biggest characters.
Well, I mean, when you put him up against Captain Mannering from Dad's Army, it's a bit night and day. But
where you would know him from.
I certainly, having watched a fair number of the 60s episodes now, really, really appreciate Leonard Swindley. He's a great character. Looking forward to talking about him more later. Next up, we've got Doreen Lostock, who worked together with Leonard in the clothes shop. So she's a great, great character. I can't remember the name of the actress now. She died just last year, I think, was she, or the year before? So we did a bonus podcast about her then, and it was really lovely being able to rediscover a few more of her highlights.
She was great, yeah.
Yeah, loved Doreen. Real ditz of a character. Next up, Valerie Tatlock, played by Anne Reid.
Oh, another
Ken's
big
first
one.
wife. Really big one.
I loved Val.
I think
These
maybe
are some of my favourite older characters.
I think putting her, she's going to be similar to Jack Walker, though. People understand that he's an important character and that she is, but I don't know how well remembered she is by people. Well, how well known she is by people who didn't know her at the time.
I'd be super surprised if they get anywhere, especially in the listener vote.
Sure. Next up, we have got Hilda Ogden. Oh my gosh! So we've already got Ina Sharples and Hilda Ogden. This is going to be a fight to the death.
Like this.
I'm not liking where this is going.
If there's any new people, if there's any big new ones, this is going to be a bloodbath.
It really, really is. Okay. Next up, we've got Pat Lynch.
Oh no.
Come on, let's stop the pick there. So we've got Ina, Hilda, and Bet Lynch in this week's
Those three
Corrieliminator.
would be, if you said they were your top 3 characters, that would be a
They
really
could be
decent and respectable choice. That
out of all
everyone would agree with.
300 plus, they could be there. Oh my gosh, this is going to be difficult. Next up, we've got Alan Howard. Okay, I feel more comfortable with putting him a bit lower down. One of Elsie Tanner's husbands there. Not one that I particularly have got particularly fond memories of. No.
But she did. She married him.
Ivy Tilsley.
Oh,
Ivy.
you really
I
like
do
Ivy.
love a bit of Poison Ivy. She was excellent. Lynn Perry was so good playing her.
Yeah.
I also know she's Sally Ann Matthews' favourite Coronation Street character.
Better get on there and vote.
She better get on there and vote on the listener vote.
We do accept listener campaigns. If you want to campaign for people to vote for your pick,
yeah, you go for it.
It's free advertising.
Right, next up on our list we've got Fred G.
Fred G, unpopular. He's not supposed to be likeable, so...
No, he's not. So he was a barman in the 80s, played by Fred Feast. He was a bit of an obnoxious character, but I think he was still quite fun, but definitely of an era, wasn't he?
He was like the picked upon.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Okay, next up after Fred, we have got... I'm just nervous every time. Alma.
I can't believe this.
Alma Cedric, as she is on our list here, but obviously much better known as Alma Baldwin or Halliwell.
Man.
I think we've got some strong contenders here, we really have. I just don't know how I literally don't think anybody could knock Bet, Hilda and Ina off the top. But we'll see who else we got to come after Alma. Marion Willis, who later came Marion Yates. She married Eddie. Lovely nice. Lady.
I'd marry her.
Yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily vote for her to be top 3.
But she's a fantastic character for the little bit of time that she was in Corrie. Next up, Sarah Louise.
Oh.
First one still in the show at the moment on our list. Iconic character, so important to the history of the show. Again, definite top 10 contender, I think, there, depending on who she's up against. Tina O'Brien is amazing with her. The teen's pregnancy storyline that kicked off her proper stint on Coronation Street, still one of its best remembered. Next up, we've got Mark Casey. Okay, so I'm happy for Mark
he can skate through.
Yeah, he worked at the garage. I can't say there's a whole lot more we can say about him, but you never know. There might be somebody that's even lower than him.
I couldn't pick him up out of a lineup.
I don't know whether I could either, to be honest. Tommy Duckworth next. So he's had a couple of actors play him over the years. Not Terry Duckworth, that would be another big one. But Tommy, he famous for being sold as a baby. But I think that when he came back as an adult, he didn't make too huge an impression on the show, did he? Yeah. Back next, we've got Denise Osborne, so played by Denise Black.
Yeah.
I'm
feeling less stressed.
A little bit less stressed.
I do like Denise, but she's not been in it very long.
She wasn't in it for too long. Yeah. When she did come into it, they kind of wanted to brand her the Elsie Tanner for the 90s, didn't they?
Yeah, sexy.
But she didn't. She's not got a huge Corrie legacy, but we'll talk a bit more about her later for sure. Up next, we have got Les Battersby.
Oh, now he's a big character, but he's also one of these ones that was unpopular, kind of like Fred G, where his job was not to be everyone's favourite character. He was there to stir things up and be an antagonist, and boy did he do that.
Absolutely. Really big character, well remembered. Lots of people have got lots of opinions on him.
Yep.
I'll be interested to see where he ends up coming out on this. Spider Nugent is next. Personal favourite of mine. I just love him. Maybe slightly unusual way of bringing him back a couple of years ago as an undercover policeman, but it was nice to see him again. I got a lot of love for Spider. I hope he does really well. Up next, we have got...
we've got 3 in a row.
Have we? 102, 103, 104. So let's just... Anthony Stevens, Eileen Grimshaw, and Karen. Oh my gosh. So Anthony Stevens, lovely guy. One of Rita's many suitors over the year. But Eileen and Karen, oh my gosh. Again, top 10 material, both of those.
I don't know what to say. I'm devastated.
Sue Cleaver, amazing. She's brought so much life to that character over the past 20 odd years. And Karen, though she was only in it a short stint, definitely one of the most memorable new characters of that era. Absolutely love her. Okay, we've also got...
This is making me stressed.
Chesney.
Oh, poor Chesney.
Poor Ches. I think he might not get a top 10 slot here, only because of his competition.
I mean,
as important a character as he is.
We were talking, the last time we did this, we had, to be fair, not that many really big contenders, and now this is where they've all gone.
They've all gone to this month. Next up, Frankie Baldwin. So I enjoy her. She was fun for a time.
I liked her voice.
Yeah, she's not going to make the top half of this list the way things are looking at the moment, but I'm actually enjoying her quite a bit on the ITV3 repeats at the moment, actually.
Very interesting. Are the characters of this era going to get a boost? Because now we're in the this section, because it's chronological. This section is full of people that you'll be watching on Classic now. Are they going to get a boost because of that?
That's a very good point. Up next,
me,
we have got Liam Connor. That's Liam Connor Sr., not Charlie Renshaw's Liam Connor, but the one who got
his dad
dispatched underneath the wheels guitar by Tony Gordon. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of him, honestly, but I know that as he's got his fans. Up next, we have got Ardy, lovely Ardy Allahan, first played by Zenon Ditcher, and now more recently Adam Hussein. Really great addition to the cast, lovely recasting. He's a lot of fun.
He's a lot of fun.
I don't know. He's maybe going to be a bit of a mid entry for me, maybe even lower just because of the competition. We have got 5 more left, starting off with Tony Gordon, Speak of the Devil. There he is. So who gets higher, Liam or Tony? Well, we know who had the last laugh on Coronation Street. Is it going to be the same for Corrieliminator? And next up we have got I feel this is okay. Umed Allahan. Now, some might say that he shouldn't even make this list of the top 300, but I think everybody remembers Umed for the very small number of episodes he was in. I've got good memories of him.
Brightened my day.
Absolutely.
He was kind of like,
but I'll happily put him in the bottom 10.
He was just like colour. You know, he added a nice bit of colour to your day.
Absolutely.
With his antics and his doorbell.
His doorbell, exactly. Next up, we have got Emma Brooker.
Oh,
lovely Ali Mardell. She was a real breath of fresh air, a modern Corrie great, I would say. Maybe lost it a little bit towards the end, but I think she
killed Eccles, so.
we lost her too soon from Coronation Street, so it's going to be nice to be able to chat about her again. Evelyn Plummer is next.
Oh my god, Ina versus
Evelyn.
This is actually something that we've spoken about on the podcast quite a lot, about who is the best character.
Who's going to come out on top in the Battle of the Handbags.
Modern battle axe.
Wow, okay. And the last pick for this month goes to Jacob Hay. Okay, so another fan favourite. Jack James Ryan did a super job with him for a little while on Corrie before he disappeared. Sadly not got a huge legacy, but definitely a real fan favourite.
I've got a headache.
Wow.
I can't do this.
This is going to be tough. This is going to be a difficult one, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the listener votes as well. No, we got to do this. Let's get Corrieliminating. Let's do it. We got to do it. Let's move on. Okay, so we have got our board of characters here. This is going to be... I don't know how we're going to do this. I've spent a little bit of time putting the pictures together. We've already talked about it among us, haven't we?
No, we haven't.
Well, only ever so slightly, in the fact that I'm still thinking...
We were both saying, what are we going to do?
Well, I was saying this is another month where it's possibly quite obvious what goes in the top 3, and you said, oh no, it's not.
Oh, right. So, I was like, what are we going to do? And you were like, well, I mean... there's a lot of really good characters that won't make it in the top 10, but at least we know the top 3's obvious.
Yeah, and you said no. Well, look, let's do some quick, obvious sorting. You want me to
on the table? Who do you think the top 3 is?
I can't, not in any order yet, but I can't see how it's not Ina, Hilda, and Bet. So what? So you thinking not so much? You mean you must have some of those in there?
Oh, of course, those 3 definitely, but. There are some other...
Who else is in contention for you?
Again, you set it up so that it's really hard for me to see. But, Evelyn is a massive fan favourite.
Yeah, but she's only been in the show 5 years or so. I think she's in the top 10, but
when I compare her to another character, normally it's Blanche. Yeah. We've spoken about Blanche before. I think she's iconic. I love her. I don't want to ever besmirch the good name of Blanche. But I will point out that I do genuinely think that Evelyn is a bit more of a complex character, and I don't think that's wrong at all. I think that she's got a lot more going on than Blanche did. Blanche was a fantastic one-liner dispensing machine. She was fantastic at that.
She did have some nice family scenes as well. She had some really great family scenes.
She had some deep stories. She had her moments for sure, but I think she's a different type of character to Evelyn, and I think that a lot of people compare them, and I don't think that's right. But I would compare her with Ina Sharples because I think they're very similar. Because Ina Sharples had a bit more depth, and she had a lot more serious storylines. And she was a longer lived character.
Oh yeah, she was in the show 20 years. I think if we're talking about truly iconic status, Evelyn hasn't reached there yet. She's Maureen Lipman is obviously an iconic actress, and she's being nominated for awards left, right, and centre, actress and comedy awards. But I just don't think that in this particular poll she can top Ina. For me personally, or for Coronation Street as a whole. We'll come back to her. Who else is there as potential top 5 even material for you?
Well, I mean, we've got Karen, haven't we?
Yes, we do have Karen.
I can't tell from the pictures. I'm just going by memory. We've got Karen. She is one of Steve's most iconic wives.
Yeah. I mean, we still haven't had Becky yet.
That Steve's wives are like the talent pool of Coronation Street, aren't they?
In some ways, they certainly are. Okay, who else?
I can't really see.
Right, let's just. Why don't we stop?
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. We'll keep on going.
I'm just telling you, I can't really see.
Well, do you want me to take a photo? Let me just take a photo on your phone.
We did that before, didn't we?
We did this on the phone. Now everyone who's watching the YouTube can see me taking a photo of themselves. Right, there you go. Now you get a better view.
And now I'll see everyone's faces, but I won't know their names.
No way.
That's another classic Gemma move.
No way. Who did you just say, Val? She's not top 3 or even top 5 material.
The trouble with this is that this is a personal list, isn't it? So if I was doing this for Coronation Street fandom as a whole, I would definitely say that Ina Sharples is not going to get through in the top 3 because I don't think that people remember Ina Sharples as a collective. As a Corrie collective, if you ask the average fan, is Ina Sharples a top 3 character? They wouldn't say yes.
I think a lot of people might say, yes, I've heard of her, but I don't really know why.
But can I say, Ina Sharples is to Coronation Street what Shakespeare is to literature. Everyone agrees that it's super classic and should be considered to be the tip of the top, right?
Right.
But nobody really appreciates it properly. I don't feel like being slanderous, I'm sorry, but most of the episodes that she was in are not readily available. I genuinely think if you're a new fan and it's no bad reflection upon you, you just wouldn't have seen her. Well, I don't think I'm being controversial. I think you're reacting like I'm saying the worst things in the world.
What about?
I don't think it's a good thing that people don't regard Ina Sharples as one of the best characters in Coronation Street. It's just a consequence of the fact that it's been on for 64 years.
Go back to what you were saying about Val then, because you picked her out of the lineup as a lead one.
This is a personal list, but it's also a joint list.
Yeah.
And Val is definitely more of my favourite character than she is yours.
Yeah, I think that's true to say. I would have her maybe somewhere around the middle. I think she was in the show for 10 years, less than 10 years, maybe in the 60s, and it feels like time has moved on. And Ken's much more remembered for his relationship with Deirdre clearly since there. I don't, we've seen bits of Val here and there, but I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable having her even in the top 10.
Val?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I was going to say who's scrapping out for the top 3, because you said, who could possibly beat the top 3, and I do agree with your top 3. I think I thought you were going to put up more of a fight about these other ones.
There's still plenty of time. The night is young.
Alma.
Yeah, I think Alma is legendary enough that in the top 10. Are you saying top 3?
I'm saying top 5.
Oh, okay.
I think the top 5 is actually going to be harder than the top 3, maybe.
There are some big names there. Who else you got?
And Eileen.
Right, Eileen deserves a place somewhere up there. I would probably also want to round that out with Ivy, Sarah Lou, Les maybe, as kind of as big names. I think they're up there now? Somewhere.
We've got 10.
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 11. So one of these lot are going to be knocked down into the middle ones.
Okay, so I think
we'll come back to talking more about them later. Should we do the bottom ends and see who that leaves us?
What? So who's this guy?
Well, I think
this man.
Was it Mark Casey?
Yeah, put Mark Casey.
Put Mark Casey in there because you didn't know his name. I like to have a think.
Right, and just to reiterate, as ever, because apparently this needs reiterating.
It does.
This is no reflection upon the actors. This is the characters. The characters and the writing. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. People aren't in it very much. The stories they're in aren't great. Just because you're 30, don't come at me, Mark Casey.
Well, he might make it a bit higher than 30. So Mark Casey was...
No, I said he's 30, he's staying at 30.
Mark Casey was a mechanic in 89 to 90. I think I remember this right, that his dad owned the garage where Kevin worked, and Kevin was kind of the boss. And then the dad gave Mark... as a birthday present, I think it was, ownership of it, and then so Kevin had to work for his younger, more inexperienced mate. Didn't like it, ended up quitting, and then the garage went downhill fast. I don't remember that. I mean, I think he hung around with Jenny a little bit. He didn't leave that much of a mark on the show, although he did come back, the actor, playing Jackson Hodges' dad, about 10 years or so ago. So he had another shot. I think that was his third role in Corrie, actually. I think he was a paperboy or something earlier in the 80s. But yeah, he's definitely going to be wallowing down the bottom ends. I would also say, sorry, Uncle Umed, but you kind of got to be there, haven't you? He didn't even make, he was about 6 months in Coronation Street in 2009. He should be consider himself lucky to get even in our top 300.
Really? Oh, no, but I like him.
I know, he was fun, but I think looking at some of the other names we've got here, I don't think he's going to get into the teens. Maybe he'll be a bit higher just for the cult fan favourite factor.
It's only because of the other people in the list that.
Well, let's stick him in this sort of area.
Okay.
I'm thinking also. Oh gosh.
Who's the Rita guy?
The Rita guy.
Yeah.
Anthony Stevens. The Rita guy, yeah.
He's 29.
He's there. He's lovely. He's lovely. We'll talk about him a bit more later, but yeah, he's not getting out of the 20s, is he? What about what was his name? Alan
Howard.
Alan Howard. Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
Now Howard is an interesting one because he was the real life husband
of Pat
Phoenix, and they had a very tumultuous relationship on and off the screen. Mm-hmm. So as far as like salaciousness and intrigue goes, he's actually a really fascinating part of Coronation Street history.
But as a character in the late 60s, early 70s, I think he was.
Really
We've only seen bits of him. I just don't gel with that kind of character. He was businessman, which doesn't really usually do much for me character-wise. He had a bit of a Len, but he had less of a personality. He had an alcoholism storyline, I think, didn't he? I remember there being a scene where Elsie comes down and finds him kind of sprawled out on the sofa. But yeah, he just... to me, wasn't a very likeable character. I kind of get the impression from what little I've seen that maybe he felt that he was a little bit better than the others on Coronation Street.
Oh, definitely.
Because of his money. Although he still would socialise with them in the Rovers.
He had a great voice.
I remember
it being very rumbling and theatrical.
Quite possibly. He's gonna be rumbling down the bottom to me.
I'm sure Annie Walker thought his elocution was quite spectacular.
I think Marion Willis is going to end up towards the bottom as well.
Her.
So lovely. A bit like Marion.
Stardust Lil.
Stardust Lil was her, because her and Eddie
CB
Yates.
Radio, wasn't it?
They were CB radio buddies in the early
name?
80s.
Do you remember?
Slim Jim.
Oh, yeah.
They first met over the CB radio, then they met up for real, and then they had this lovely little romance.
Just for the interest of putting this to the record, it's not necessarily in my memory that's wrong, it's just my ability to recall it in times of stress that I have a problem with.
We are also recording this on the hottest day of the year so far.
Again.
We're playing partly on that as well.
This is coming
Marion Willis was
lovely. At great personal cost and sacrifice, okay?
It really,
it's 30 degrees. I don't do anything when it's past 25.
1 degree for every character on our Corrieliminator list.
I'm doing it for you guys.
She was just very nice and cheery. She had a bit of a story where I think when she started going out with Eddie, she had another fella on the go, but she ended up dropping in for Eddie, or Eddie then dumped her, and they got back together and they had a lovely marriage. It was just a really nice ending for Eddie, because he was always a bit of a ducker and a diver, wasn't he, having come out of prison and been in and out of the nick during his time on the show, and this was him settling down with a nice
sweet
girl. It was a really, really sweet relationship, and I think
and they were kind of a
Hilda
couple.
was proud of them together.
You know how everyone was always trying to say, who's the new Jack and Vera,
Yeah.
I think that being the Marion and what was his name?
Marion and Eddie.
Marion and Eddie is what you want. You get together, everyone likes you, you're kind and friendly, you've got a good sense of humour, and you leave and have a kid.
Well,
kind of like
this is exactly Lloyd and Andrea. This is Lloyd and Andrea, but 30 years earlier.
And have your kids somewhere normal.
the smile and the scouse, basically, is what you had with those two as well. Because as soon as she got a ring on his finger, away they went. I think they made their final appearance.
She wasn't dumb. She knew what she was doing.
Exactly. They made their final appearance on the episode that was Hilda and Stan's Ruby wedding anniversary party in the Select in the Rovers, and that was also the episode where Rita finds out that Len's been killed in the car accident. They left on a high. I just really love the happy ending aspect of it, but I'm not going to deny that her impact in Coronation Street history is minimal, to say the least. So I'll put her in the 20s for sure.
Now Tommy Duckworth. Okay?
Yeah.
Tommy Duckworth's a difficult one, isn't he? Because he's a significant character, and I think he would still have been in it if circumstances had been different.
I don't know whether he'd still be in it now, but he would have had a longer run.
I think they would have. I think they would have made him have a family, and I think there would be Duckworths all over the shop.
Little ducklings all over the place.
I think there would have been, and I think that. But I do think. I mean, what did he dabble in?
Tommy or
Tommy. We're not going into Chris Fountain. He wasn't the guy that was the chef. That was somebody else's ne'er-do-well son.
Yeah,
was
possibly.
That another Duckworth? A different Duckworth?
Oh yes, no, that was Paul Clayton. That was Terry's other son.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I don't remember much about what he did. Was he a work at the garage? Tommy. I think he was a mechanic.
He was involved with Tina.
Yeah, because I remember when Tommy had to make.
Broke up, wasn't it?
Yeah, when Tommy made his quick disappearance, it was Tina wouldn't stop saying where's Tommy for a little bit, and then she suddenly just forgot about him. So yeah, but he for me, when I think about him as a character, I don't see very much more than just the hunk. Yeah.
The hunk with a heritage, and I think
the hunk with a heritage. Exactly.
I think there's a few of those knocking around Corrie now. I mean, it's been 60 odd years, so I think Daniel's a hunk with a heritage. I think Tommy could have been what Daniel is now if he'd stayed in the show, but possibly. I really think so. I think they had big plans for him, but he's not in the show anymore.
No,
I think they could recast him.
He's going to be low down, isn't he? He's going to be low down.
I do think if I was producer, that would be one of the things I'd do. I'd bring back some of these old names, and Tommy would be one of them for sure. Totally renewed and different.
Yeah.
But he never really. He was a duckling that didn't really take to air.
No, nice. I'm thinking Fred probably
G, don't like him.
Fred G. I mean Fred G. Doreen Lostock as well. Lostock. Probably somewhere towards there, and even maybe the likes of Frankie Baldwin. I mean, we've got we've got a really tough top 10, but and I don't think that the ones that we've got in this bottom 10 are maybe as low as some of the ones that we did last round of the Corrieliminator. But
if this was doing the whole 300 in one go, most of these characters wouldn't be anywhere near the bottom.
No,
genuinely,
no.
And so this is hard, and there are only a few characters on here that I don't like.
I think,
and even the ones I don't like Fred G, I don't like them because you're not supposed to like them. He was kind of an anti-hero.
Yeah, for sure.
Not an anti-hero, but an antagonist.
I think probably, Leonard Swinley is going to be low teens. He's fairly
we're on the
important.
mids now, aren't we?
Yeah,
so put Jack in there
and Ches.
Yeah,
I think.
Sorry,
can you notice how for the video version I've got a young cute Chesney as the picture? I'm using my puppy dog eyes the same way that he used to get what he wanted, to try and get him a bit of a higher spot.
Scamming Easter eggs.
Yeah, on ITV3. I think that probably. It's difficult with the rest of them.
I think all the rest of these are comfortably in the middle.
Comfortably middling.
Because we've got Denise there, who I thought was great. She wasn't in it very much.
She wasn't in it loads. She was in it for a few years, mid-90s, and she's come back seemingly on 10-year intervals. She returned in 2008 and then in 2018 as well.
Well, she's like Locust.
I was never a huge fan of her, but I think, as Daniel's mum, she's got a bit of a legacy there. I'd be putting her more kind of more middly-ish. Spider, We both love him. A bit of an odd comeback the other year. How important is he to the show? I think he's fairly important in terms of its kind of rejuvenation under Brian Park. You know, bringing in the swampy-like character to reflect some aspect of modern Britain that we hadn't seen on Coronation Street before. He was a really nice character. The romance with Toyah was really cute. I really don't have any bad things to say about Spider, but again, I recognise that he's not universally loved, and he's not one of the most anywhere near the most important characters that Corrie has produced over the years. So maybe a mid to low teens for him. Where are you thinking for Tony Gordon? Because he's, you know, he made a big impact for those few years around 2010, 2011-ish, wasn't it? I can't remember exactly. He was the one that kicked off Britain's Got Talent Week as well with the Factory Siege. He was very commanding character, and he had a great fiery relationship with Carla. Is he still remembered well enough now to go high on the list? I don't know, what are you thinking?
He was the one that got killed by his own mum.
That was Frank Foster.
See, I always get confused between Frank Foster and Tony Gordon, because I do think they were the same person.
They weren't.
How were they different?
One of them was Scottish. And the other one got killed by his own mum.
They were both ruthless businessmen who came to a sticky end after trying to meddle with other people. And I think Tony Gordon was probably a bit more villainous.
I think Tony Gordon is more notorious villain-wise than Frank Foster.
Well, they were both terrible, weren't they, really? I mean...
Yeah, well, I mean...
Frank Foster...
He was the rapist, wasn't he?
Yeah, now we're demonetised.
Yeah, sorry. And then Tony Gordon, We're
not in it for the money, we're in it for the love of villains. Yeah, Tony Gordon...
set the factory on fire.
That was great, I loved that, but...
What, who done it?
No, yeah, exactly.
No, you see, you're confusing him with Frank Foster again.
And he got Carla and Haley.
Yeah, lots of shady business deals.
Kidnapped them.
And he was the one that's responsible for Luke's death. Not Luke. Liam. Sorry, I'm getting characters confused.
He did the fate everyone has of the same face.
Yeah, well, that was Tony's.
And then he delivered Liam Jr. on the beach.
Yeah, that was he did do that. He was at the stag do. Yeah, he arranged for Liam to be run over at the stag do. He was a really nasty piece of work, really. And I think he's quite well regarded in Corrie villainy history.
So here's a good question about...
Maybe...
this is a test of our morality, right?
Yeah.
This is going to make us good or bad people, depending on how we answer this. Do we put Liam higher or lower than Frank Foster?
I'm going to say that Tony Gordon was a more compelling character than Liam Connor.
Oh my god.
He's got his fans, does Liam. He was another hunk on the street, wasn't he? Another factory hunk. That era of Coronation Street is still a little bit shady with me. I don't remember a whole lot about Liam. I remember he had his on-off relationship with Maria. He was going out with Carla at the same time. His death was pretty epic, getting mowed down by the car, and then
to me he's a more forgettable character than Tony.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
And you know, the actor went on to do great things in Downton Abbey, so he was really talented.
Yeah.
But the character
just put him underneath Tony Gordon here to remind us.
That makes us bad people, though.
Okay, so we got a couple of young ones left in our initial sorting before we go through each one. Yeah, so we've got Ardie, Emma, and Jacob.
Right. Okay. So just going on, just initial thoughts. My ranking of these three would be Ardie, Emma, and then what's his face?
Jacob Hay. I definitely would agree Jacob in the bottom. He was great while he was in it, but his time was very short-lived, bizarrely. And I think, you know, lots of people loved him at the time and were very sad to see him go, but he's not left that much of a mark on Coronation Street. His little romance with Amy was quite cute. I love the bit where they had the picnic on the boat at night. Yeah, that was really nice and sweet. And yeah, the scenes in his final weeks where he was trying to flush the drugs down the loo.
He burned too brightly.
He was a really good actor at the role he did, but yeah, he's absolutely burning brightly. And will we see him again? Who knows?
We extinguished his flame.
Yeah, so So, I mean, he's going to be towards the bottom middle, maybe. I don't know about
I don't
Emma and
know,
Ardy in
honestly.
that order, because Emma, obviously, Ardy's got so much more history in the show, but Emma feels like she packed more into her few years than Ardy has had a chance to yet.
It depends on whether you're talking about potential, because I think, on obviously, Emma's not in it anymore. Ardy, a lot more potential.
But I don't think we can base it on that. I think it's basing it on where are we in 2024? What have we seen so far from these characters? And I think that how long's Adam been playing Ardy now?
I'm
Has
just
it been
gonna
4 or
say,
5 years?
As far as good
No
years
more
have
than
gone,
that.
they've both had an equal pop, haven't they?
Yeah.
But Emma definitely got more stories.
She got more stories. She got more screen time. She got more magazine covers.
Yeah.
She was a lot of fun. I think in her final years, they didn't use her so well.
It was the curse of the Weatherfield woman.
They brought her in, and she was so much fun. And it was about a year or so until they revealed that she was actually Steve's daughter through Fiona. But she was just a funny, quirky kind of ditz of a character. She was not worlds away from what Doreen Lostock was like in the 60s, I suppose.
Right,
but
the funny, bubbly, a bit oblivious.
Yeah, but
good-hearted
and really lovely romance with Seb. But then it kind of fell apart when they decided to throw tragedy upon tragedy after it, because they realised that Ali Mardell was a very good crier.
I also thought that it kind of went, I don't know, the Alina love triangle, and then I think it went wrong when they killed off Eccles and they made Emma, they made the Barlows blame Emma.
Yeah.
That was kind of the beginning of like the questionable era of Emma, and I don't.
Yeah.
Curtis was fun.
Oh God, Curtis! I'd forgotten about him.
But
yeah, that story didn't work, and then obviously her exit story where she's knocking down Ted and his biscuits with Faye was just disastrous from start to finish. Well, maybe that's over.
Like
a little bit, but I still think that she's got more of a legacy, and I think she fits higher in my personal ranking of Coronation Street characters than Ardy. Just because if you think, well, what big storylines has Ardy had so far? Really, you think of him and Courtney last year. That was his first big shot, wasn't it? He's had a couple of bits dabbling here and there with Amy in the past year or so, but that's not gone anywhere. I think that Adam and Jimmy's relationship, so Ardy and Dev in the shop, is fantastic, but it really smacks of they don't quite know what to do with him yet. So I would put him lower.
It's funny because Ardy, there was a point where Ardy was like, oh, so much potential, and again, I can pinpoint where it started going wrong. It was when they had the car crash, Alahan's car crash, and he was like, I will unleash Dark Ardy, and then nothing happened. Like Dark Ardy just kind of like emoed in the background for like a few episodes, and then he was snogging Courtney's face off.
Yeah.
I love Ardy. I think I wish the world for him. I'd love him to be in it forever and ever. I think he's Adam Hussein, hilarious.
I think he's great.
Same with both of these actors, both young, talented, really great comedic timing, really, really talented. But again, like I said, about all of these, just to remind you, it's about the character and about what the character did.
Yeah.
In the show.
I think it's worth mentioning his and Evelyn's relationship as well. Not that they've had loads to do with each other, but when they're, at loggerheads in the shop, it's always fun. And do I remember the scene where he had to give her an appraisal one time?
Really, honestly, I mean, hark on about classic Corrie, but that would have been like the meat of about 2 weeks worth of episodes back in the old days. Sure. That would have been the major kind of soap cover, Evelyn versus Ardy, who will come out on top. But as it was just a passing kind of whimsy, wasn't it?
I think recency bias and time in the show puts him higher than maybe the likes of Denise and even Spider and Jacob for sure. Which means I guess Emma is higher than that as well. We've put Jack Walker fairly high up, but we've not really said anything about him. Do you want to plead his case for a top half? Jack Walker, top half of the list.
Okay, right. So my what's the word? Bias for this is that he reminds me of my granddad. My granddad died when I was in primary school, so I didn't actually know him that well.
Yeah.
But what I do remember was that he was a gentle giant. He had a beer in his hand. He died on New Year's Eve with a beer in his hand after giving my grandma a kiss. So that kind of sentimental, soppy side of me will always love Jack Walker. Like, he's my actual granddad. But he was just the perfect foil to Annie's acidic nature. He was, and you know that he actually wore the trousers in that family. I know that the joke is that he was a henpecked husband, but if he put his foot down, there was nothing she could do about it. And that kind of quiet strength, I think, is a real characteristic of that generation of men. And I think he was a product of his time. And so for that reason, I really think he should be quite high up, honestly.
Yeah,
and if you say you don't agree with me, you're basically spitting on my dead granddad's
I think he's
grave.
a lovely, lovely character, and every scene that I watch with him in, I think he's really is the bee's knees. But he hasn't gone down in Corrie history, sadly, has he? For whatever reason, despite, being the first landlord, it was Annie who then survived him for another 10, 15 odd years or so. And I think people have forgotten that for the first 10 years of the show, they ruled that roost together, and what a dynamic duo they were. So I'm happy as somebody who just loves the character as well to put him fairly high up, even if it doesn't really rank in terms of overall fan feeling towards the group that we've got here. Shall we try getting them into a proper rank then? Do you want to do our bottom 30?
Oh, the bottom.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So the bottom, the ones towards 30. So we were kind of looking towards
Mark Casey.
I'm.
You know what? Me saying Mark Casey then and again was probably the 6th time I've ever said his name in my life. So
I don't even know how much of him you've watched, to be honest. You've probably seen more of him.
It's just a rumour.
Playing Jackson's dad. Yeah, you don't need to. They can't all be classics, and sadly, this one hasn't hit there for me, so I'll happily have him there as number 30. I'm kind of thinking next. I really, really love Anthony. I think I don't know how sacrilege it is to put Anthony above Alan Howard, but in my heart, Anthony was such a lovely guy. So he was somebody who Rita went out with. And it was a bit of a story similar to Paul Kershaw, in that Anthony had a wife who was sick behind the scenes, and Rita didn't know about her for the beginning. And then she realised that, he's saying like, she doesn't even recognise who I am. She's got dementia. Don't think, I'm sure you're fine.
Really intently.
And yeah.
I was enchanted like a bird to your song about the story of, what's his name?
Anthony Stevens. He was such a genteel bloke, wasn't he? And I think he sometimes gets confused with Ted Sullivan, one of Rita's other fellas as well. But this one, had the hidden wife, and then his children. There was this great scene one New Year's where the daughter, and maybe the son as well, dropped themselves in on Rita and Anthony, along with the mum, this mum who's suffering dementia, and it was heart-wrenching that the mum didn't know what was going on, but it was clearly there just for the daughter to stick the dagger in Rita's back. Eventually, he emigrates off somewhere, and Rita doesn't want to go with him because she's got her ties on the street. But he was such a lovely, lovely guy. If that counts for anything, I know he doesn't mean much to you. How would you? I mean, even like Tommy Duckworth, I'd maybe think could go lower than him. Although Tommy burnt brightly when he was a kid. The story with his dad Terry selling him as a baby was explosive, wasn't it? And it had the scenes like Jack punching Terry out on Boxing Day or whenever it was. What are you thinking as 29?
Anthony.
After all my impassioned...
Who did you propose instead then?
Well, I just told you a few. I just said Alan. I just said Tommy. Even Marion and Umed could go there. Or Frankie.
Oh, no, it's hard.
To be frank.
Oh, I don't know.
What do you...
Do you know how hot it is?
Have you got any strong feelings positively regarding Alan Howard? Would you feel sad if Alan Howard, or even Tommy... I'm kind of thinking...
Alan Howard is the Christopher Marlowe to Ina Sharple's Shakespeare. Like, you're supposed to say that he's really cool and excellent, but you don't really know why or what he's done.
He was married to Elsie Tanner.
Yeah,
and that's about it. I mean, it's done.
It got Camilla far, didn't it?
Well, it's got Val. It's got.
I don't know about
Val quite high on our list by the looks of it, being married to Ken.
We'll put Alan in next then.
If I put Alan in at 29, we'll see how
great
that
name,
looks.
Not great character, and also he's dead. What's he going to do to us?
Well, then I'm thinking maybe Anthony and then Tommy, although in my heart, as if I'm just talking pure favourites, Anthony is definitely higher than Tommy. But I understand that Tommy's got the legacy, if that counts. What do you think counts more? Personal feelings of affection or legacy to the show? If we're comparing Tommy and Anthony
legacy versus emotion.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It doesn't...
Legacy versus... Alright. Because this is a personal list, we need to go emotion.
Go with the heart rather than the head first.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't put Anthony any higher than 27.
I still think that's a bit bonkers, but this is a joint list.
Yeah, this is a joint list, and there's still, it's not settled. We could still change it, move a few around in the end. I'm thinking probably Marion Willis after that, Marion Yates later on.
No. Hang on a minute. We've got Fred G in here.
Yeah, but Fred's much more of an important character than Marion.
Legacy versus emotion.
I do quite like Fred. He was supposed to be kind of odious.
We need to think of a catchier juxtaposition, legacy and emotion. We need something.
Well, it is. It's head or heart, isn't it?
Yeah, but we got to think of our own. We've got to coin a phrase here. Pop it on a t-shirt.
Not live on recording.
What's emotion, legacy? Come on, think of synonyms. Christopher Marlowe could do this.
I don't know.
We'll come back to you in Corrieliminator Round 5. Legacy or love? Yes.
Okay, there we go. So
and that can be the subtitle.
Do you think that Marion should be higher than Fred G? He was I don't know, I can't remember how long Fred was in the show. Does he have a catchy
fun nickname? He probably did actually, but I don't think it was fun.
Fred Face. That's what Bet called him. The antagonism between Fred and Bet was brilliant. That was core classic really Rovers back in the early 80s.
You're right. You've just swayed me there, because I always say that Rovers team was one of the best.
Yeah, and Fred
it
also
wouldn't have been as good without Fred.
Fred also involved in one of Corrie's best comedic scenes when the Rover goes into the car, that is not the pub, goes into the lake, and he's there having to wade into the lake to rescue Bet and Betty. I think that he deserves to be higher than Marion, but I'm thinking, I'm kind of thinking that Umed's getting a lucky escape here.
Through with love, isn't he?
Yeah,
and his doorbell.
I wonder whether we should, say let's have Umed there.
You know that he's gone on to star in Marvel films.
I know. He's done very well for himself.
What's he been doing recently?
Not so much recently. I think he's been dead about 25 years. It doesn't feel right for Umed to be higher than Fred. To me.
Oh, I know, but if this was my wedding guest list and everyone was alive,
you'd rather invite Uncle Umed.
I wouldn't invite Fred.
let's just put it.
Maybe I wouldn't invite Uncle Umed because he'd probably try to, sell me a wedding planning
He'd have
package.
Great repartee. I'd have him doing one of the speeches. I think he'd do a brilliant job.
I think he would as well.
Let's put that there.
Bring him back.
How about if I just kind of throw together maybe Jacob, who's done well to get that high, considering how little he was in the show.
Yeah, sad. It's sad because he could have
gone
far.
Maybe like this: Jacob, then Doreen, then Frankie, or do those need reordering a little bit?
No, Frankie. Frankie goes underneath Doreen.
Okay,
because Frankie had one or two good stories. Really, she was lightning in a bottle once.
I'm trying to remember a lot of what Frankie's stories were.
Shagged a son.
Oh yeah, there was that.
That was it.
Well, stepson.
Was that the only thing she did? I mean,
the family were only in the show for 2 years or so.
She shouted in Cockney about. Basically, she was a chavvy Cockney version of Aggie Bailey, because she was a rich housewife forced to relocate to the dowdy street of Coronation Street. So
yeah, so she, I think again recency bias, just because we're in the middle of the Baldwin story on ITV3 at the moment. might be making me want her to put her higher, even though she probably doesn't deserve it. Probably when the family are gone again, she might sink away. But she has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed the relationship that she's had with Vera, which is a bit of an unlikely duo, where Vera has worked with her in the cafe and also done some cleaning for her.
I like that kind of stuff. That's what Corrie should do more.
But okay, well
and also cults.
Well, you know.
Can't have everything.
Can't have everything. So Doreen, we're just going to put one higher then. Do you want to plead Doreen's case?
Oh, she was so much fun. I loved her. I just thought she was. See, the thing about some of these characters that I like is that I can't pinpoint exactly. There's no big story. There's no like turning point. They were just fun, and the charisma of the actors goes really, really far.
Yeah, Angela Crow. I found out the actress's name now.
A quality you can't quantify it, you can't write it down, you can't really explain it. But some actors are just magnetic, and she really, really was. She was bubbly, fun. She was carefree. She was like Christine Hardman was kind of like the moody teen, and she was like the bubbly, like kind of a bit like Sarah and Candice, you know, there's like a bubbly, outgoing one, and then there's like a bit more of a moody one that gets knocked out when they're 12. Maybe not back in the 60s, but can you imagine if Corrie had done that story in the 60s, it wouldn't be on now?
I don't think so. Okay. Doreen was a lot of fun. I thought it was great seeing her working in the shop. I think she was even there were some episodes where she was working at the cafe as well, Sylvia Snape's cafe.
Her
for a
reactions also to Leonard Swindley were great, because he was like a big stick in the mud kind of like buffoony guy, and she was just like, oh, I don't really know if we want to sell these pants in this size. And he used to get quite flustered by her, and she kind of tried to manipulate him by saying things that he got flustered by.
Another bright burner. 3 years I think was about as long as she managed in Coronation Street, but she was an awful lot of fun, and one that has been fairly lost to time.
Stock to time.
Exactly. Okay,
I
so
do really like her.
That's kind of looking fairly solid for our bottom third.
She's one of those characters that I could really imagine transplanting into current Corrie.
Okay, what should we have as our bottom mids then? Who's not really doing it much? I'm leaning towards.
This is getting harder.
I'm leaning towards Liam Connor here.
Yeah.
He's kind of calling out to me. I'm kind of thinking Liam Connor at 20, and I know some people are going to say, no, put him in the top 10 because they thought he was ace, but he as a character never really got me that interested.
He's just a hunk.
Yeah.
There's a lot
I don't
of
think
them.
I was the target audience.
No, me either. No, I'm probably not supposed to be there. I'm not. You can't sway me with your good looks. You have to have a personality, and he was just a lad. And that's fine, but
I'm sure that people will be able to tell us a lot more, but he's not stuck in my memory.
On our list, though.
I think he's got the legacy. He's even got his own son that bears his name on the street now.
Yeah.
And Maria every now and then remembers just how lovely he was, despite the fact that he was having it off with Carla at the same time as he was going out with her. But
he did have enough personality to call his dog Ozzy.
Yes. That's true.
I mean, that shows some kind of interest beyond beer and boobs.
Who do you want to put next?
Can you just move him across, because it's really bugging me. He's not really centered.
Do you want him to be centered?
The other way. Like all the other ones.
What do you mean?
Up a bit. Right.
Oh god. Okay, right. So I'm kind of thinking we're in. It's going to be looking at Tony, Spider, and Denise at this point.
Spider. Okay, I know you're not going to want to put Spider there.
No,
so
you might be right.
Denise, maybe.
I think if we're
Denise
going
is
with
a fair weather friend. She's a fair weather Weatherfield resident, isn't she?
She is.
Turns up every so often for a big dramatic storyline.
But both of them have come in and out over the years, haven't they? Denise she was really fiery, and like I said earlier, she was kind of envisioned as being the Elsie Tanner for the 90s when she first came in.
But they made a mistake by putting her with Ken. Elsie Tanner would never.
She was only with Ken for a little bit. There was a great story where I really love the scene where she invites, I can't remember who it is, there's Reg Holdsworth and a couple of the other old guys that wouldn't stand a chance with her. She kind of invites them all to her flat, and they think that she's coming on to them, but it turns out she's just there to have a bit of a laugh with them. What?
Here's something. Are you gonna?
I was also going to say I really enjoyed the story with Don Brennan when he was pestering her, and that was kind of going into his dark phase, and he was like leaving silent phone calls for her. But yeah, looking back, I just didn't think too highly of her. She was having an affair with her cousin for ages, and then she kind of disappears off with baby Daniel before swooping in a little bit later to try and.
Not related.
Yeah, and then each time she's been back since then, she's just not been hugely likeable. I think she tried in her 2008 return, or thereabouts. I think she tried to steal Ken off Deirdre again. I don't think I'm confusing her with Wendy, but I might be.
Can I say something?
What?
You know how you said that she was supposed to be Elsie Tanner for the 90s?
Yeah.
Can I tell you who I think Elsie Tanner is most like, and you're going to think I'm mad?
Go on then.
I think she's like Evelyn. I think if Elsie Tanner lived to the age that Evelyn is, she would be the same. I think Elsie Tanner is Evelyn without the sex drive.
You reckon?
I can see why they put Denise and Elsie together, because yeah, they are bad with men. But I think that Denise kind of like had a bit. You know what I mean? Like she thought more high. I think that Elsie was a bit more humble than Denise.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that Evelyn is an evolution of somebody who used to be like Elsie, but has since kind of matured a bit more.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know what? I would be happy to argue it with somebody who knows more about it, who wants to talk about it. It's definitely a subject that you could talk about for about half an hour. But I just throw it out there. I mean, I could decide I'm wrong in a few minutes' time, but just a talking point there for your next Coronation Street themed dinner party. Why not put that on one of your little notepads when the conversation starts to wane?
Do we put Spider above or below Tony Gordon? They're our next ones here.
Well, I mean, it depends on if you think that killing innocent creatures is good or bad, because Spider's against it and Tony Gordon's for it.
He loves a good slaying, does Tony?
Yeah.
I think that Tony was huge character for a couple of years, but then so was Spider, plus he's had a few comebacks since then. I think that Spider never hit quite the same highs headline wise as Tony Gordon did, but everything that he did with Toyah in the late 90s, whether it was the protests outside Furman's freezers, or having a bit of a sleep about having a bit of a bonk on the red rack, or standing on the desks at the welfare office and sticking it to the man. He had a great antagonistic relationship with Les Battersby, who I think is going to come out on top in this particular list. I think it could be argued that he's higher, and he's certainly got my heart more than Tony Gordon does.
They both have fun accents.
Yeah,
that you can do.
Would you feel that you'd need to argue against for that one, or would you let that one slide?
I would only argue against it in so far as that I think other people will. But for me, that's fine.
Okay.
I think that's, I like Spider. Tony Gordon was great, but again, he's one of these characters that was born for a story.
Yeah. And
I think that Spider's more versatile.
Yeah, I think so. He's done.
Not dead.
Not dead. He has not been splattered with a rolled up newspaper yet. Okay.
I don't
16 then. So
is that how Tony Gordon died?
What? Don't be so ridiculous. Okay, so to round off our bottom half, so this is 16.
I don't want to put anybody in 16 that I can see here.
This is really tough. I'm leaning more towards Jack or Ardy, to be honest. I'm only kind of thinking Jack because
Grandad Jack.
He's not that big a character in Corrie's history, as lovable as he was. I know he was in it for 10 years. He was in it for longer than Emma Brooker was.
He nearly made it to 1,000 episodes. Or did he? I know that he was in the Celebration magazine, but he died before it came out, which was tragic.
Well, if you want to let your heart rule...
Again, you're just abusing a corpse at this point.
Look, why don't we say Like Ardy at 16.
I love Ardy, no.
Emma at 15. Oh my gosh, didn't mean to do that.
Just throw the whole thing in the bin. I'm not doing it.
Emma at 15 and then Jack at 14.
Oh.
And I don't think that he can go higher than the others that we've got there.
Do you know what? If you tried to make me decide between who I like more out of Ardy and Jack, I couldn't tell you.
I think that Ardy, as we were talking about earlier, is still the untapped potential.
Oh, Jack.
But
London Lovelies.
Yeah.
They'll never be the same without you.
We've talked a lot about
right,
those
Chesney,
characters.
Just get in there, please.
We haven't really chatted about Chesney at all at the moment. Maybe that fits in nicely.
Look, Child Chesney, the Chesney you're watching on Classic has fallen mightily since those heydays of stealing Easter eggs.
He really has, but he did have a pretty long run as being an adorable kid. And Sam Aston was such a talented young actor.
Honestly, Sam Aston is still incredibly talented, but Chesney is one of those characters that is not there to make friends, is he? He's not. He is in a really difficult position with the family situation. Unfortunately, the scenario doesn't feel realistic, even though child poverty is like one of the most glaring issues facing this country today. Somehow Coronation Street has made a story where it doesn't make sense that people are living in poverty like they are. So he's kind of like onto a downer already there, but he's the years and years and years. And again, just like some of these other characters, I can pinpoint you exactly when it went wrong. It was when he got together.
Oh, with Katie.
Well, when Schmeichel died and he got together with Katie, that was the beginning of the end for his character. But do you dismiss all those years that when he was honestly one of the best child characters on Coronation Street ever?
He absolutely was, and he still holds that to me. I mean, it's him, it's Simon, it's Sam. I think we have, yeah. But yes, Chesney was absolutely brilliant. He has had some fun moments with Gemma even as well, but it just seems like they've just got misery upon misery thrown at them, and he's just kind of a bit fed up with life, and that's kind of the impression you get when you look at Chesney these days. So Sam Aston's doing a great job at portraying that kind of character, but he's not so fun anymore. But I think in terms of importance, he definitely deserves to be high up there on the list. Are we happy to put Swindley at 11, or I'm still wondering whether Val should be?
Well, who's going in?
I'm kind of going back and forth between Val and Leonard at this point. Okay, Leonard's done quite well to get so high without us really chatting much about him.
Pros and cons of both. So Leonard Swindley, played by Arthur Lowe, incredibly iconic, like I said, character actor in this country, famous for Captain Mainwaring. He is incredibly talented. He had a spin-off show. Yeah,
pardon the expression. He did too, and Turn Out the Lights.
They knew they were onto fantastic talent with him, and it's a shame he left the show.
And he didn't, he didn't stay for too long, did he?
He was mid-60s. To do that?
I can't remember.
But some of the kind of... The thing is about Corrie is because it's been going on for so long, a lot of the stories have become cliches, and it's kind of like when you watch Casablanca and you're like, this is just a film of cliches. But it wasn't a cliche when the film came out. They kind of pioneered all of these tropes and story things.
What cliches would you say?
So I'm trying to say that, like, the ditching at the altar, the buffoonish kind of gruff man. There are so many parts of Leonard Swindley's character and storylines that still live on in Coronation Street today. And I'm not sure I can say the same thing about Val, even though as a person, I like her a lot more.
I think that
Val is like the everywoman. Val is like a really intelligent, middle-class, educated woman who you don't get to see very much on Coronation Street anymore.
I think if this was my personal list, I'd probably have Val probably a bit further actually, but I know that you love her so much, so I'm happy to put her where she is. But and Leonard, just as the pompous, the blowhard of kind of a boss that. I loved everything with him and Emily Nugent back in the early days of it, when she was pining after this older man and he had no idea, or he just got very hot and flustered under the collar every time he kind of got a whiff of it. I just loved that kind of. He was a kind of caricature sort of character, wasn't he? I don't know whether we're still putting him too high though. I'm really not sure. I mean, compared to Chesney, even, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's another one of those legacy and love things, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm happy for
but
the what?
Ches is just kind of there for the legacy a bit because we're talking about.
I think it would be unfair. I think it would be unfair to put him too low. I think.
So are we happy with Val at 12 and Leonard at 11 then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm joking a lot about Chesney, and in a way, he's kind of like Tim, except I don't come out and say I hate him. Like, I don't really have that much against him, and I'm always saying, Coronation Street needs antagonists, and not everybody has to be the best person you've ever met in your life. So
that's the role that Chesney fills.
Chesney plays that, and Leonard Finley, he was sorry, but he's just a guy, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's just a guy. Like, if you knew him in your real life, you wouldn't even want to be friends with him, would you? Sorry, Ches, but you're just a bit of a grumpy arse.
I loved with this stuff between Swindley and Ina Sharples as well, like when he found her drinking at the Rovers and how it brought the vestry into disrepute to the Michelin Club tidings.
He's like a scold, isn't he? He's kind of a bit like Norris.
Yeah, he is in a way. A little bit of a Norris.
He would never
30 years earlier.
Never admit he was a gossip, but that's what he was.
You're right. He was
a meddling old gossip.
Yeah.
But he was fun. I loved his voice. I mean, and also, who can resist a hat?
Exactly. Okay, right.
Not the highest hat wearer of this list.
Who else is a hat wearer?
Well, I mean, do you count a hairnet?
I wouldn't say so. Right, look, we're into our top 10, and they're all women apart from Les Battersby. So just as a reminder for the listeners, we've got Alma, Eileen, Karen, Les, Sarah Lou, Ivy, Evelyn, Bet, Hilda, and Ina. Who would you put towards the bottom end of that? I'm kind of thinking that Les and Karen are going to be 10 and 9. Do you not think Karen? She's burned again. This is the phrase I seem to be cropping up a lot. She's definitely a burn brightly kind of girl for 2, 3, 4 years that she was in it. Saran Jones, huge talent as an actress, and Corrie springboarded her into some really great things. But she's just recently left on classic Coronation Street, and it feels like
she was never there.
She's not left that much of a mark.
Corrie's kind of good at doing that, and it is kind of sad. And if you were to give almost any other selection of 30 randomly generated characters and to put Karen at number 10 would seem insane.
It's just the competition is very stiff here.
Oh, can you put Sarah Lou? Oh, some of these people have just been in it so long that they've rolled down the hill and gathered millions of plots.
I might even controversially say, and I'm happy not to do this, say Karen at 10 and Les at 9, just because Les had the...
Les was in it longer.
He was in it longer. He had more stories. He was a bigger character. Bruce Jones did a brilliant job of being the most odious neighbour you can imagine.
Les is one of those characters that Corrie does really well in that he is a caricature, and he's just like all the stereotypes rolled up into.
Well, he was Neighbours from Hell was very in the late 90s, and the Battersbys came in with him in charge, just causing merry hell for the first few years they were in it. Yeah, he calmed down a little bit. And actually, if you think about Les and you want to discuss him, it's also important to mention some of the sort of tenderer moments that he had as well, like when he was hit rock bottom after Janice left him for Dennis, for example. And he had a really lovely relationship with Chesney as well. When Scylla brought Chesney in as her son, the totally neglected one, Les picked him up and was his de facto dad for a good few years. But with Karen, she had the strange religious mum story towards the end of her tenure. Her rivalry with Tracy was fantastic when they were going through the whole Baron Karen story. I loved what we saw recently on ITV3 when the Barlows went on the game show on TV and Karen didn't realise, and Steve had to phone her up to ask a question and she didn't realise she was being asked on live TV. She helped make the factory come alive, and I think we're missing that kind of person in the factory when we're looking at the sort of brilliant female dynamics that Corrie has had there in the past. That's a real difficult one between her and Les for me for 9 and 10. What are you What are you thinking?
Well, if you want to put him in that order,
I can't decide.
Karen's so difficult, isn't she? She's such a difficult character because she was great, but she was not in it long. And at least Les was in it.
Yeah, he made
and
a good 10 years. And the thing about also
is that Les has got a legacy in the show now, and Karen doesn't.
And I think more people have got more of an opinion on Les.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I think that's true. I think he's like one of these controversial,
Who are we thinking now? When I've put Sarah Louise there in the 8th spot, again, just comparing her to who's there, I don't know whether maybe Alma should be at 8. I'm wondering whether we have Alma at 7 and Sarah at 8 or vice versa. Or even Eileen or Evelyn, to be honest.
No. Listen, I'm going to say something I never wanted to say.
What?
I've never wanted to say this, and my hand has been forced here, and I feel like this is gonna haunt me for the rest of my life.
Go on, just say it.
I think Eileen should be next because I don't know that I really like her that much.
She's barely been in it the last few years, has she?
Eileen has not done much.
I see where you're coming from. I can see where you're coming from.
She's a bit of a shadow of her former self. Like when she first, I remember when she had her 10-year anniversary, didn't she? Recently, was it 10 years?
No. She's been in it 20 years. Yeah.
She had, and it was her first episode, and watching that first episode was just like, it reminded me of why I used to like her, and again, she's a victim of the cast being too big, and I really think that she should be in it more.
She was at her peak when she was Saki switch operator, working with Stephen Lloyd or Stephen Vick Lloyd, or Stephen.
Yeah. Stephen and Eileen and associate.
Yeah.
Was peak Eileen, and we haven't seen the like since.
She did have some wonderful scenes with Todd, Bruno Langley, when Todd's character came out to her. There was almost a whole episode dedicated to that. And I loved how she was involved in the Pat Phelan story, but it does seem like since Pat shuffled off his mortal coil, Eileen has been just kind of floating around a little bit. They've paired her up with George, which kind of works okay, but it feels like that whole family just come in for these little mini stories rather than giving them anything meaty.
Her and George is a great idea. I think they work really well.
Yeah, no, I do as well. But it feels like that they don't want to use them, and even Todd sometimes, as any more than just let's have a funny story about George buying Eileen a miniature sofa for Christmas, and it's over and done with in a few episodes.
Obviously, life is complicated, and not everybody's in it because of various reasons.
Well, yeah, of course.
But I'm not going to get into that because that's not what this is about.
No.
But I propose a solution where everything to be as perfect as it could be. Maybe Eileen could get a job working the switch at the funeral home.
The switch at the funeral? Yeah. Literally the switch that moves the conveyor belt with the coffin.
Michael, but her being on the reception, I think, would be quite fun, because they're obviously not being serious with the funeral home. We can't. It's not a somber business. So having her just sending on messages, because at the moment it's Todd and George telling each other like, oh, Mrs. So and so said this and Mr. Blah blah wants that. But if it was Eileen doing it, I think that would give her more to do, and it suits her personality perfectly, because the trouble with those two is that they have to kind of break the character of caring about their jobs to do these stupid little funny jokes. Well, they're not stupid, they're funny, but if Eileen was doing it, it would be better, because she doesn't have an emotional stake in any of these things. She's not going to the funerals or like embalming corpses. Yeah. She's literally running the phones and getting annoyed at people, saying they want to be buried with a cockatoo who's not dead yet.
I thought that they've maybe had a story, maybe in the last few years, where Eileen worked there for a day or two. I don't know whether I'm making this up. But I think they could run with that. I'll happily have her at number 8. I'm kind of thinking that Alma's maybe creeping in there at the moment, or Sarah. Who do you think?
Sarah, I love Alma, but I didn't watch a lot of her stuff.
No.
So to me, Alma's always this just fun. Again, like Val, she's a sensible, educated woman who I personally would like to have as a friend. She had her head screwed on right, but. And she had a really tragic end, whereas Sarah's had a lot of time to be an idiot. and she is an idiot, and a lot of her stories revolve around her being an idiot.
I think that the Mike and
But
Alma...
she's been in it for longer.
Yeah, the Mike and Alma partnership was a proper classic Corrie couple here. And he treated her so badly. Her best partnership, I think, was with Gail in the cafe. But I think for a lot of her time, I can't picture loads of big Alma stories, but I just know that she is a huge character. I thought that Amanda Barry brought so much energy and humour to the character. It feels like at the moment we're struggling to say why she should even be in the top 10 other than she's famous, but she's just had this really magnetic kind of watchable personality, didn't she? She was kind of a little bit cynical about things, a bit like Eileen in a way. She just has said there's something really, really likeable about her.
Yeah.
And a great double act. So I'll happily put her at 7 if we're gonna put Sarah Lou at 4, or do you think that? I mean, it seems like we're left with the battle of the battle axes, aren't we, with our top 5?
Yeah, I mean, but that's Corrie in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I know you love Ivy.
I really adore Ivy as a character.
Your love of Ivy has rubbed off on me like a rash, like poison ivy. So, and I think she's a very deep character. I think she's one of the most complicated characters Coronation Street's ever done, because they weren't concerned with making her likeable. She started off just as a foil for other people. That was kind of her role. It's just to get in other people's way. And
she was really fun at the beginning, wasn't she? She came in as a very different kind of character.
Yeah, she was actually. She was working in the factory.
Yeah,
judging a different husband.
She had a few husbands that had just been lost to the mists of time. And her and Vera's relationship in the factory was brilliant. Ivy was often one of the ones, along with Ida Clough, who would stand up to go on strike. She was, I think she was the supervisor. But really, my love of Ivy comes from the family side of things more, which was her blind devotion to her son Brian, even many years after his death, and the harridan role she played as Gail's cantankerous mother-in-law. Because Gail was just, in Ivy's eyes, no good for Brian. She wasn't even a Catholic. And I think after Brian died, and Ivy, Lynn Perry put on such an amazing performance the episode after Brian's stabbing. Gail wanting to move on, Ivy not having any of it, and then she kind of also then caused Don Brennan to turn sour when she started dating him as well, didn't she? She just kind of everyone around her just.
She's like cursed.
Yeah, that she really cursed them in a way. She's such a. As you said, it's such a really deep character. It's a real shame how she ended up having to leave the show after.
I wonder there are so many points in Corrie history where I think, what if, I'd love to know what would have happened if she'd stayed.
Yeah, I think that, I can't remember exactly when Lynn Perry died. I think it was maybe 5, 6, 7 years or so after she left Coronation Street, but she was just superb. I loved her in the shop. I mean, I'm still feeling that Evelyn at the moment is feeling a bit lucky being this high, considering how new she is. She's got some really stiff competition here. Evelyn. If this was me, as much as I love Evelyn, I'd probably be at this point putting her at 5 and Ivy at 4.
I can't say that's wrong. Because Evelyn has just come in, like a wrecking ball, as I'm sure she would say Miley Cyrus is her favourite pop star. She's just been fab, but she hasn't been in it super long.
She's certainly proved the naysayers wrong who said that she's just a carbon copy or a bad version of Blanche. Yeah. She's come into a character on her own. She isn't anything like her. She's got the bite, she's got the bile, but she also has the tender side as well, which we've seen in her relationship with Tyrone, and also that what was his name, Paul Copley character that came in a couple of years ago. Arthur, that's right, Arthur Medwin. That was lovely. We're starting to see a bit more of a different side of her with Cassie now.
Mine to go off and marry him.
Oh yeah. With.
What happened to him? Bring him back.
Even with Roy, lovely sort of relationship, and it's a kind of will they, won't they? And I think they won't.
I'm not sure that I want.
But I think that her acting talent, Maureen Lipman, certainly helps.
Maureen Lipman,
we've got a whole load of great
you know,
actors here, but Maureen Lipman is
in a kind of field,
she's a bit of a league of her own, isn't she?
She is a different animal altogether.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair to say. But I feel that Ivy is just that, at the moment, that bit higher in my head.
Some might even say that Ivy is the reason that Gail went mad.
You could.
I know that all her husbands kept dying, but I really think even if all her husbands had been alive, which would have been awkward for Christmas, she still would have been a bit bonkers because Ivy drove her up the wall.
I think she definitely planted a seed there.
Yeah.
Back in the late 80s and early 90s. That's sprouting now.
Gail created a pearl of madness around it as the years went by.
Okay, so unsurprisingly for me, that leaves us with Bet, Hilda and Ina in our top three, which is who I kind of thought it would be. And I feel gutted that some of these others, Ivy, Sarah, can't make it in there, but that's the luck of the draw.
There's plenty of people on this list who could have easily been a top three in a different group,
yeah, I mean, we're going to end up with the top 30 in the end, and there are definitely some in this list that could have made another top 30. But that's the way things goes. That is Corrieliminator.
At the end of it, are we going to do like all of the 30s, all of the 29s?
No, we are not going to do that. I think this is already taken up enough
episodes.
Milk it. Right, so the big question is...
Well, okay, can we... I know that we...
I know my order.
I know we normally do this at the end, but can we just go through... Like, who was our bottom five?
Okay, so bottom five, we had Mark Casey, Alan Howard, Tommy Duckworth, Anthony Stevens, and Marion Willis.
Yeah,
later
I think
Yates.
that's
feeling about right, kind of low. I feel that some people might be arguing higher for Alan, but I can't as a personal list.
Yeah.
After that, we had Umed Alahan, Fred G, Jacob Hay. I was just thinking of the actor's name. Jacob Hay, Frankie Baldwin, and Doreen Lostock.
So those were the next five.
Does Doreen feel a little bit high? I'm not sure. Maybe not.
I really liked her though.
Yeah, she was a nice breath of fresh air for a small amount of time.
And then we've got like the middlers, haven't we?
Middlers. So we've got characters here who we kind of recognise the importance of, but they haven't quite got enough to make it into our top 10 this time. So starting off at 20, we've got Liam Connor Sr., then Denise Osborne, Tony Stewart, Spider Nugent, or Jeffrey, and Adi Alahan, followed by Emma at 15, then Jack Walker, Chesney Brown,
Unlucky 13.
Yeah, Valerie Barlow, and then Leonard Swindy at 11. And then our bottom half of our top 10 looks like this. We've got Karen at first, Karen MacDonald. Then we got Les Battersby, Eileen Grimshaw, Alma Baldwin, Sarah Louise Platt, and then we've just ranked Evelyn at 5 and Ivy at 4.
Okay, so, I think we can live with that, can't we?
I think so. There's nothing there that feels completely wrong. It's always difficult with some of the classic characters that some people are going to have no opinions on. Like some people would say, Jack Walker, what's on earth's he doing there? Val. But there is kind of the personal aspect to this list as well. Some people, I'm sure, would be wanting to put Chesney down lower, but I honestly think that his child years count an awful lot for him.
It's golden years.
Exactly. Right, so I know my order.
Beating around the bush here.
Do you know your order for the top 3?
Right, let me just think.
Yeah, Bet, Hilda, Ina. Who are you thinking? They're all made it. None of them are being Corrieliminated, so at the end of the day it doesn't matter too much. But we are here to rank.
I've always had trouble with Hilda because she's new.
What do you mean?
I always think of her as being new. Even though she was in it in 1964, she came in, right? Wasn't it?
I can't remember. I thought it was 63, but it might be 65. I can't remember.
I always think of her as like the new character.
She was in it before Bet.
I know. It's so stupid. Now Bet, iconic. But again, her heyday was not my viewing era.
Well, no, you've not seen. You started watching 6 years after she left, so you've only seen little clips of her.
But also, I've seen some classics, and what I've seen, she's phenomenal. But I never really got it until then, Ina Sharples, I've always loved Ina Sharples. The idea of Ina Sharples is just as good as the reality, I think she's like one of these archetypal people, like an eternal figure You know, like you have the maiden, the mother and the crone.
Yeah.
I think she's like a folklore persona come to life in the streets of Weatherfield.
Can I tell you my ranking for
You fed up
these,
with me
and
now.
then you can change
argue
them
with you.
and argue with me if you want. I would
You want to speed this up a bit, do you?
I would put Ina at number 3
No,
here.
okay, wrong.
I think that she's clearly, an iconic battle axe. She's one of the first names you think of when you say kind of original 1960s Corrie to people. She was amazing. All the scenes of her in the snug where she was there with Minnie and Martha, just getting under the skin of everyone on the street, but everyone was terrified of her. What a utter classic of a character that is. But she was purposefully a bit unlikable as well, and maybe the forced unlikableness is what's kind of rubbing me in the direction of putting her at number 3. I think I would put Bet at 2 and Hilda at 1. But honestly, we could have all 300 or even 400 odd characters over the years, and I might be debating between Bet and Hilda as my number 1 and 2. But it just so happens they are here together. Bet was an utter icon. It wasn't just that ditzy barmaid that some people see her as. She was strong, powerful woman. I loved her relationship with Alec, even though it didn't quite work. Having her behind the bar at the Rovers, she just was the queen. One of the
Rovers' best landladies.
Absolutely, it's right at the top
field
there
as well, because there's some epic characters in there.
Yeah, I enjoyed that she was there sort of in the peak Rovers workers era, with Jack and Fred and Hilda. I loved the relationship with Raquel. That scene where they're getting drunk in the Rovers after was a total classic. The fiery showdown with Rita in one of her final episodes. Really, the only place where my adoration of Bet dips slightly is in her 2002 return, the first return, where she just become a bit of a bitter woman, hadn't she? But she was only in it for a week or so, then she buggered off again, then came back next year for another week and did a lot better.
My memory of her history in Corrie is kind of hazy. She came in as like a factory girl, didn't she?
Yeah, she poked her head around the door of the Rovers for a bit.
And then she didn't come back for ages, and then when she did, she was a barmaid.
Yeah.
And she lived in the little flat, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened between that and her being the landlady? Did she go away at any point?
I don't think so. I think she was pretty much there as a barmaid for a long stint during the 70s.
Because I'm going to say something that I wanted to back up with actual facts, which I don't normally bother with. And that is that she's one of those characters that you've actually watched grow and mature and age.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And unlike lots of other characters who kind of like bumble from one situation to another, she actually did have a story which showed growth and maturity. Because she started off, like I said, factory girl. Then she was a barmaid, a go-go dancer. She was dancing on the
with Lucille Hewitt on the bar.
On the bar. And eventually she winds up owning the place. And she goes from, this kind of like fun young thing into all the troubles of the world on her shoulders. And you
got like the miscarriage story.
Yeah, you got to see that happen. You got to see her progress, and even when she was younger, she had her troubles. But she's always.
You had her son, didn't you?
Yeah.
Martin. Yeah.
I remember her crying in her flat. Did she get depressed and she wouldn't come out?
Yeah.
Was that Dennis who had to come and try and get her out? Am I remembering?
No, you're remembering something else there.
What am I remembering?
I think you're remembering Sheila Birtles.
No.
I don't remember. But anyway, I like that with the growth. And if I could compare to Sarah Louise, at the moment, when Sarah gets kind of a high up sort of job, in the factory, I think, that job's not for you, Sarah. You haven't earned it yet. But Bet earned where she got to.
All of the stuff that has earned Sarah her place with a clipboard happened off screen in Milan.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it doesn't
you're right.
really wash with us.
You're right, absolutely.
But yeah, Bet is one of those characters that really did change over time. But she was still likable, and Corrie did throw a lot of tragedy her way, but she, like that famous line,
not a smile, it's a lid on a scream. Whereas many Corrie women these days have tragedy thrown their way and then they just wallow for years afterwards.
Bet wouldn't have it.
Bet wouldn't. She'd do it in the back, but then she'd put on her lippy, do her eyes, put the smile on, and then march into the bar, and people wouldn't know that anything had happened. And I think that's what a lot of people really admired and loved about her.
Yes, I really, yeah. And then Hilda, what can you say about Hilda? She's probably one of
just so much
Corrie's most iconic visually. Both these top
three,
three,
all three of them,
have all got, you could sketch them with like 3 lines. That they all have a very strong visual image, and their personalities, again, also you can kind of sum up very briefly, but there's so much more nuance to all of them. They had a lot of ups and downs. Hilda's relationship with Stan, heartbreaking and hilarious. There were so many like actually really dark things that happened in that marriage, but there's really, really charming.
Hilda,
all 3 of these characters were charismatic.
Hilda is the underdog, and that's what we like in this country. She came into a street of already working class people, but she was kind of like the lowest of the low. And throughout her 25 odd years on the street, she just went from one unlucky situation to the next. But she would always kind of come out and kind of smiling and saying, "Oh, let's try again next time," and people loved her for it. All the little comedy stories that Stan and then later Eddie were in made just brilliant little standalone episodes, whether it's brewing beer in the bathtub, or there's a chicken on the table when she comes home, or even the when it didn't always go well between Stan and Hilda, but when they were romantic, like in the second honeymoon episode in the late 70s, it was just adorable. And that's one of Corrie's best ever episodes, just in terms of 2 characters who were clearly meant for each other. Hilda thinking that she's like the Queen of Sheba, going to this fancy hotel, and Stan just wanted to sit there and watch the TV, but they still had that kiss. It was amazing. And Hilda is, I've said it about so many other characters here, just an icon. But she is. Jean Alexander was a gift to Coronation Street. And a sad loss. And the fact that Corrie's most highly rated episode is Hilda's leaving to do in 1987
well, it's the most viewed, isn't it?
Yeah, it proves how much affection the general public had for her.
That is one of the episodes of Coronation Street that kind of goes down in television history, in British culture. And it was just because of how much people loved Hilda.
Having a little sing along, Hilda's singing, that's amazing.
And her ending too. Bet's is kind of tinged with this sort of sadness, because that it ended badly with her, and she never made it up with Rita, and she didn't get what she wanted. She wanted to buy the Rovers, and she never did. Whereas Hilda, it's almost like she was the dog that went to go live on a farm.
Yeah, well, she'd been scrimping and saving.
Dr.
Lowther. In the end, she was his housekeeper, and then when the Lowthers had the break-in, Dr. Lowther wanted to have a live-in housekeeper, and so she went and lived the life of Riley for who knows how long afterwards. She
finally got respect for the thing that she'd been doing for decades, which is to be a housewife who kept the house and organised everything. And people, obviously, society really doesn't value what a housewife does, but she, household management, organisation, budgeting, earning a wage, organising everything, keeping everything clean, all of those things are like project management. She was a project manager, and she was hired by somebody who actually recognised her value and took her away from the street. Although a lot of people really liked Hilda, there were some times when people turned on her because they looked down on her quite a lot.
Well, do you remember that scene where, I think it's the one where Stan's accused of being the peeping Tom, and then Hilda comes into the Rovers and spits on the floor, exactly, and gives them a right tongue lashing. I going back to what you're saying about her ending, to me, it is one of Corrie's most satisfying character exits, and it's so simple. because we know sometimes we make fun of the off in the back of a taxi exit, which is almost what this was. But it felt so right for her, considering everything she'd been scrimping and saving for the past 25 years.
And Ina Sharple's, her exit was just she went to go live in St Anne's.
Yeah.
So I think that.
Well, she didn't have a proper. She didn't. Her final appearance was not meant to be a final appearance. It was. I don't think that. Yeah. But, so I when I put those in that order, Ina at 3, and then Bet at 2, and then Hilda at 1, you were like, no way. So I mean, I don't know if we need to split the difference anywhere. But what were you more
convinced
thinking?
Me.
Oh, thanks.
Ina Sharple's to me was my favourite of these 3. But you have kind of convinced me. I do think she's a lot deeper than a lot of people give her credit for. Ina, she had a lot of really dark, deep stories. Her relationship with Minnie and Martha has never been repeated on Coronation Street. They have never managed to hit like gold like they have with those 3 characters, those frenemies, the sniping, the seething hatred, but the bond that they had too, because they were all in the same boat. They were all kind of ignored old ladies. Nobody took them seriously. They only had each other, but they hated each other. It's kind of like the end of Death Becomes Her.
Yeah.
So that they've never been able to recreate that, and I think Ina, it was obviously the pivotal member of that trio.
Sure.
But you're right to say that Bet and Hilda are both more iconic.
I just have got a bit more of a thing for positive, happy, cheerful, good kind of characters. And although I think that Ina thought she was doing good because she was doing the Lord's work, there was certainly a little bit of selfishness in a lot of how she acted as well.
Don't try to take away her agency.
But I think Hilda was one of the most purest, innocent characters, maybe only rivaled by Hayley Cropper that Coronation Street has ever seen.
Similar, yeah. She just strived for more, and she was a grafter. And, the spirit of Coronation Street really is Hilda Ogden.
Yeah. I think so. So should we have those? Are you happy to lock them into our top 3?
We need a boom, 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 boom.
Well, there is
locked in Corrieliminator Round 4.
Ina, Bet, and Hilda have now made it into the top 30, along with the others from the previous rounds, and there were plenty more rounds to go. I'm looking forward to seeing who we've got next.
The thing about these 3 is that they could be, if we got to the end and they were the top 3, no one would argue. I would be fine with it.
I think it's going to be very hard for the final 3 not to be these 3.
What will happen?
Who knows?
Well, listen,
who knows?
I guess the thing about it, once we get to the final 30, I mean, the top 10 is going to be gold, isn't it?
Yeah,
getting in the top 30 is amazing in itself, but the top 10 is going to be, you can't go wrong with any of these.
And there will, of course, be the listener vote as well. So if you've enjoyed this and you've completely disagreed or agreed with what we've been saying, check out the link that's going to be accompanying this podcast, or the video version. We'll post it on our socials as well, and you can go and vote for which 3 of these characters you think should be saved from Corrielimination this month, and then we will put them all together in a big listener vote at the end. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us. That's been a lot of fun. Gemma, I'm glad that I thought it was going to be more difficult than it was. Like you said, we've had a real tough bunch this time. I think
what happens is it's like a marathon. You got to do it bit by bit. You can't tackle the whole thing at once.
Yeah, I think
it's like a foot-long sandwich. You don't go in. You go in by one end, don't you? You don't go in the middle and start eating that way. You've got to start at one end and work your way to the front.
I'm happy with where things have ended up here. Look, we are going to be heading off.
Who would have thought that running a marathon and eating a Subway sandwich were basically the same strategy?
Right, we are done for today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you've done right to the end, we really appreciate it. We'll be back at the weekend for another episode of Conversation Street, where we talk about everything that's been going on in Corrie this month. This week, even. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It's hot.
Right, it's hot. It's hot, everybody. Did we mention it's hot? Right, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Ta-ra.